Okay, so today we are going to be talking about strategy using the state's power disadvantage. What strategy basically means is thinking about what is the best way to use this argument to get the judge to vote for you, to believe you, right? And to vote for you at the end of the debate. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about it basically in three parts. We're going to talk about how does the state power disadvantage help you tell the story of the negative. Then we're going to talk about how the affirmative can respond or answer to the state power disadvantage. And then we're going to talk about how the negative can make the best of their story, make their best case argument, no matter what the affirmative says in response. So, what is the state power DA with relation to the negative story, right? And remember when we talked about stories, we talked about being able to say, tell the judge a story saying, if you vote for the plan, here's what will happen. The affirmative wants to say good things will happen, negative wants to say bad things will happen. So, for the state power disadvantage, the negative story is that passing the plan will cause more problems than it solves. And the disadvantage helps you tell that story because what you're saying is that even if the affirmative is right about everything they say about the case, that it'll, do all this great stuff for criminal justice reform, even if that's true, it still causes this disadvantage. And the negative wants to be able to say that the problems that the disadvantage would cause are greater than the benefits that the plan causes. So either way, that's sort of the worst case scenario for the negative. As the negative, you still want to also be able to say the disadvantage is true. It'll cause a bunch of bad things to happen. And also the affirmative case isn't that good, right? Because at the end of the debate, you want to use your impact weighing skills that we talked about in a different video, the impact weighing video, to say that the the harms caused by passing the plan outweigh the benefits created by passing the plan. And the disadvantage is a really great way to tell that story, right? So if you're the affirmative, what's your strategy for answering the disad? You basically have two choices. First, your first option is you can answer the uniqueness and you can answer the link. And these two things go really well together because like we talked about in the evidence video, when you answer the uniqueness, basically what you're saying is that um, the balance of power between the states and the national government is totally out of whack already. So even if the case passing the plan makes that more imbalanced, it doesn't matter because it's already out of balance. So if it's already out of balance and we don't see the impacts, why would making it more out of balance cause the impacts? Shouldn't do anything, right? And then the second is to answer the link. A second part of option one is to answer the link. So when you answer the link, what you're saying is, um, if we pass the affirmative plan, it won't imbalance the power between the states and the national government, either because the national government has the power to do the plan. They should be able to do the plan. So it's their duty. They're not imbalancing anything. Or there's a couple other historical arguments in there about how these types of things, even if it is some not really the national government's job, these types of plans and overreaches don't actually really have any effect, right? They don't really imbalance things very badly. So the result of this strategy, this option, is to say that the disadvantage is really very unlikely or it's already happening, so the plan doesn't cause it anymore. And therefore, since the disadvantage is really unlikely, it doesn't really do anything, the judge should prefer the benefits created by passing the plan, right? So the harms of the disadvantage are very unlikely, not going to happen, but the affirmative is very likely, right? Your second option as the affirmative is to turn the impact, and that's to go to the impact file and to say that the state's losing power is actually a good thing, and the national government gaining power is also a good thing, right? So when you turn the impact, you're not making any answers to the uniqueness or link. You're basically saying you agree things are balanced right now, and that passing the plan would imbalance things for powering more the federal government, right? And then you're saying that's a good thing because the national government does good things with power, whereas the states do bad things with power. So obviously these are two very different options, right? So how can the negative answer the affirmative's answers? Now we're thinking, once you get to the 2NC or the 1NR, and the affirmative has read their answers in the 2AC, how do you respond to them? What's your options? So you basically also have two options, right? And these correspond to the options that the affirmative takes. So If the affirmative chooses option one, you should respond to that in the right way, right? If the affirmative chooses option two, you should also respond to that in the right way. Because the affirmative, their options basically tell different stories, right? The affirmative is either saying it's unlikely, it won't happen, not a big deal if it happens, or they're saying, the disad is going to happen, but it's a good thing that it happens. So you need to understand what story they're trying to tell in order to be able to respond to them. So in the first option where they're saying it's unlikely to happen, it's not a big deal, then all you have to do is defend your uniqueness and defend your link and reiterate that the disadvantage is very likely and it would be very bad if the disadvantage happened, right? In option two, where they turn the impact, where they say, yeah, the disadvantage is going to happen, but it's actually good because we want to take powers away from the states and give them to the national government. As the negative, you answer this by basically saying, they agreed with our uniqueness, they agreed with our link, they say that the disad is going to happen. All we have to prove is that when you take away power from the states and give it to the federal government, that's a bad thing. And that's when you go read some more impact arguments and you look at the cards they've read and you say why everything they said is wrong, right? Basically. So then maybe you've thought of this question already as we've been going through strategy, but a question that we hear pretty commonly on the disad is, why can't the affirmative answer uniqueness, link, and impact? Why can't they do all three parts? And the reason for that is I want you to think about the story it tells when the affirmative answers all three parts. So if they answer the uniqueness, what they're saying is that the national government already has too much power. The balance of power is already out of balance. When they're talking about the link, the affirmative answer is that the plan doesn't give too much power to the national government from the states, so it doesn't cause an imbalance. And then the answer to the impact is that the states having power is bad. So when you think about these three parts together, what you're going to realize is that it doesn't really make sense together because you're saying the power is imbalanced, plan doesn't take away power, but taking power away from the states is good, right? So this is a really confusing, jumbled up story. So that's why you have to choose one option or the other. You have to choose the option to say the uniqueness in the link, saying that the disadvantage is really unlikely or it's already happening, so it doesn't matter. Or you need to choose the second impact, which is saying, the disadvantage will happen, but it's good that it happens because we want to take power away from the states. So that's the basic strategy of the disadvantage. At the end of the debate, as the negative, you just have to remember you want to keep the three parts of the disadvantage going, the uniqueness, link, and impact, so that you can tell the story saying that the disadvantage creates harms that are greater than the benefits of passing the case. If you're the affirmative, you want to basically do the opposite of that, right? You want to choose which parts you're answering and then be able to answer them in a way that says passing the plan will not cause the disadvantage, or if it does cause a disadvantage, it would actually be good because we want to take power away from the states. And also, the case is still going to cause a lot of benefits and not harms. So therefore, if the judge passes the plan, they'll have the benefits of the case, and those benefits will outweigh the disad, or the disad actually creates more benefits for the affirmative. So talk with your partner, talk with your coach, figure out what it is you want to do, what option you want to take, and then get ready to do that in either the 1NC, the 2AC, or the 2NC 1NR, depending on what your role is. And plan ahead so that you have a good debate. That's it for this video. That's it for the disadvantage. So hopefully you can look at some of the other skills videos. And if you have any questions about the disadvantage, feel free to ask your coach or ask junior varsity or varsity debaters on your team, or feel free to email me. Enjoy your debating, and I hope the disadvantage goes really well for you.